A great golf lesson doesn't begin when you arrive on the driving range. It begins before you even meet your instructor. In this episode, we'll explore 5 simple things every golfer should do before each lesson so that they can get the ultimate value out of their time with their golf professional. Most importantly, each preparation step provides a leadership lesson that can apply in the workplace. Because whether you're preparing for a golf lesson, a presentation, a meeting, a major business decision, the quality of the preparation often determines the quality of the performance. Welcome back to the A Perfect Swing podcast, where we talk about lessons in purpose, perseverance, and preparation from the fairway of life. My name is Ashante Epps, LPGA Class A golf professional, LPGA Top 50, and author of A Perfect Swing, Lessons in Perseverance, Purpose, and Preparation from the Fairway of Life. And I am someone who adamantly believes that golf teaches us far more than just hitting the golf ball. And so those are the things that we like to cover here. Today, we're talking about something that I think can completely change the way you approach golf instruction. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a proponent of getting a golf lesson. There are videos out there. You can, trial and error. But the reality is that you want to get instruction from a certified golf instructor. And lessons can be expensive. So depending on your budget as well as your time, you want to make sure that you're making those sessions effective. And so that's what we're honing in on today. So really making sure that you're showing up prepared so that you can get the most out of that time with your golf instructor. So the big question today, how do you prepare for a golf lesson? And I'm ready to dive in it. A lot of golfers show up at the lesson tee and they expect the instructor to just really kind of understand what they want, how they're feeling, and what they're looking to do, and then immediately fix it. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. If you haven't thought about what you want to accomplish before you get there, what you're seeing performance wise, unless you are simply brand spanking new, you're green, that really doesn't help, right? So you have to have pieces of information, key items available to help your golf professional be the best that they can be for you. Okay. Now, here's what I love about this topic. Preparing for a golf lesson is a lot like preparing for leadership. So today I'm going to give you 5 things you should do before every golf lesson and the leadership lesson that comes with each one of them. So let's get into it. All right. So the first thing is really you want to know why you're taking the golf lesson. That's the first thing. Before you arrive, really ask yourself the question, what do I want to accomplish? What's the goal for this particular session? Why do I even feel like I need a golf lesson? There should be a purpose and a reason for everything, right? What you don't want to say is, I just want to get better. That leaves it too broad. You really want to hone in on a little more than that. So you want to identify some specifics. So it can be things like, I want to stop slicing my driver, or I want more consistency with my irons, or I want to improve my short game. I want to feel more comfortable playing, with business associates. I want to break 100. I want to break 90. All of those different things are specific enough for your golf professional to give you some solid instruction. Okay. So the more specific the goal, the better the actual instructor can be for you. And the instruction will be suitable for you. One thing that I like to pride myself in as a golf professional is that when a student comes to me, I am focusing on them. I'm not focusing on here's what the box person, this is what everyone should look like, what everyone should do. No, I'm looking at you individually, understanding where you are, where you want to go, helping you specifically. So that student centered approach. And so, again, understanding what your goals are become critical so that that is what you and that golf professional can attack. And so with your instructor, you want to create short-term and long-term smart goals. And being smart is critical. Of course, in the business realm or education, you've heard of SMART. SMART goals, the S is for specific, the M is for measurable, the A is for achievable, the R is for relevant, and the T is for time bound. The same thing goes for a golf instruction. So when you look at the S, you want to be clear on what your goal is. Like what area you working on? Is it alignment with your driver? Is it distance with your driver? Is it chipping from 20 yards off the green? Is it lag putts? Is it short putts? Being very specific about what that goal is for the lesson. And then measurable. Being able to really process and track what criteria are necessary so that you can understand how you are performing. Bottom line, you want to be able to measure it so that you can see if you're meeting the goal. That doesn't mean that you must meet the goal to make it measurable. What it's just saying is that it's what you're how you're measuring up to that particular goal. And as you continue to utilize the goal, it may be that when you evaluate it later, you have to reassess it, but that's fine. But at least you can measure it, because if you can't measure it, you can't grow it. You don't know if you're doing better if you don't know you're doing better, right? So measurable is really critical. Achievable, your goals have to be realistic. That is so important. Uh, you know, everyone comes in and everyone wants to shoot under par. They want to be scratch golfers, or they want to shoot in the 70s. Well, great. You say you want to shoot in the 70s in 1 month and you just started. I'm not going to say that it's impossible. It's just unlikely. So it's not realistic. But giving yourself the ample time, that becomes realistic. And a more realistic or achievable goal may be, you know, not three putting, hitting more fairways, and you have a gauge of what the fairways are, making more greens and regulations, right? Understanding what it is that you're trying to do in your particular environment and for you. Relevant, so that goes, it has to be relevant. And relevant means it should matter to the individual and align with your broader objectives. So if you're trying to work on alignment with your driver, that could be the case because you want to hit more fairways so that you have a better opportunity of getting on the green on your next shot in par fours, putting twice and making par, lowering your scores, as opposed to having to fight out of the rough, chipping, and then, your score ballooning. So alignment with the driver, great, but it's relevant because if your initial overall personal goal is to lower your scores, you can see how that alignment with your driver helps you with that overall goal. And again, we're talking about the goal for the actual session, for the lesson with the instructor. But you also have external, meaning out of the actual session, short-term and long-term goals as well. And then another example could be chipping the ball closer. Because if you're chipping the ball closer, it helps you, and closer is in closer to the flag. It could help you stop three putting, and taking one putt off of your stroke for 10 holes or 11 holes, out of the 18, that could be pretty critical, right? And that helps in lowering your score too. But again, it's relevant to what you're trying to do from a broader perspective with your game. And then the T for the goal is time bound. So you want to understand how long you're going to observe or evaluate this particular goal. And again, after the goal, after you've actually met that time frame, then you can go back and reassess it. So if it's open-ended, you really, you really don't have a measurement of, okay, it's just ongoing, and you're not even kind of seeing or putting any constraints around you to meet it. So if there are no constraints from a time perspective, it just goes on and on and on and on. You want those time constraints. You want it to be time bound. Again, not saying you have to meet it in that time frame, but because you can always reassess it, but you want to make sure that there is a time frame on there. And that is what's going to make your goal for the golf lesson session successful. So when we think about the time, and it could be the number of balls, right? 3 out of 5. It could be the number of fairways that you hit, or the number of swings, the number of time you set up correctly. All of those, you're putting times on them, right? Just to constrain them so that you're clear on where you're going. The same thing applies in leadership. You cannot lead effectively if you don't know, or you can't articulate to those who you are leading where you're going. Before you start a project, managing a team, or taking on a leadership responsibility, just simply ask the question, what is the desired outcome? Remember, clarity creates direction. If your team doesn't know what success looks like, they're going to create it on their own. And that is going to lead to a disconnect, because everyone's vision of what it looks like could be different. So just remember, before you can improve your swing, you have to define what a better swing means to you. And the same is true for leadership. You can't achieve a goal you haven't clearly defined. Perfect swing isn't about perfection, it's about purpose. In a perfect swing, lessons in perseverance, purpose, and preparation from the fairway of life, discover how the lessons learned on the golf course can transform the way you lead, overcome challenges, and pursue your dreams. Whether you're a golfer, a business professional, an entrepreneur, or someone searching for purpose, this book will inspire you to embrace perseverance, prepare with intention, and lead with confidence. Your next chapter begins with one swing. Order your copy of A Perfect Swing, Lessons in Perseverance, Purpose, and Preparation from the Fairway of Life today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and at www.aperfectswing.net. Again, that's www.aperfectswing.net. A perfect swing, because success begins long before the ball is struck. All right, the second thing for your preparation for your golf lesson with your certified golf professional, and this is huge, be honest about what you're struggling with. During a golf lesson is not the time for you to try to impress your golf instructor. No, you're there to get help. So if you're struggling with your driver, tell him. If you're practicing for 6 months and you're not seeing any results, tell them what you've been practicing. And if you have not practiced for 6 months, tell them that as well, because that all factors in. If you're nervous about playing with executives, tell them. That's something that they can help you with as well too. If you don't understand something that they're sharing with you during the conversation, say, I don't understand. Can you say that again? Explain that in a different way for me if you can. It is imperative that you understand what your golf instructor is trying to tell you. But if you just get to becoming the yes person, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, right, right, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you don't really understand, it is ineffective and it's a waste of time. And you don't want to waste your time, because time is critical. The game of golf is hard enough in itself. And when you have someone that's there to break it down for you and help you understand it, you want to utilize that time wisely. Okay. Another thing that, when we look at it from a student perspective, just note that a golf lesson, like, it's not an audition. You don't have to prove to them that you're a great golfer. You are there to learn. So I really want to just drive that home. Just know that you're there to learn. It's okay to make mistakes in that environment because that's where you learn. I can't stress that enough. Now, when we think about that from a leadership perspective, it falls in the same thing. Great leaders create environments where people can say, I don't know. I need help. I made a mistake. I need to fix this. I don't understand. Those statements are not signs of weakness. They're opportunities for growth because clarity is what creates a commitment environment from everyone so that you're all walking and focusing on the same goals. The strongest leaders aren't the people who pretend to have all the answers. They're the people who know when to ask for help and identify who they need to ask for help from. And that is 100% critical. Vulnerability is not weakness in golf and leadership. Vulnerability creates the opportunity for improvement. And you want to be okay with being vulnerable in your golf lesson as well as from a leadership perspective. Okay. The third thing, bring information to the lesson. And when I say that, when you know what you want to work on, great. You're ready to be vulnerable to say, hey, here is what I need work on. Then now you have to articulate to that golf instructor what you're seeing, what things you're noticing, what you're feeling. So, as you're trying to prepare those answers for that golf instructor, you can ask yourself questions like, what shots am I consistently hitting? What direction are they typically going in? Is it right or left? What particular shots generally give me trouble? Is it shorter shots, longer ones, full swing, chipping, pitching? All of this literally helps you gather information. Are you typically on a hill? Uh, are you uphill, downhill? Um, are from a perspective of are your shots coming up short? Are they going long? Right? All of those things help you gather information. When does the problem happen? It may be a situation where it's like when you're playing the first four holes, you're great. And it seems like after that, you bomb out every time. One of the common things is that people tend to really kind of wear down around the 10th or 11th hole. So if you notice that it's always after the turn, it seems like I'm breaking down at that point, note that, right? Those are things that help your golf instructor understand what you're having difficulty with. And then also share what you've already tried. Um, Golf is a thinking person sport. So you have to do some trial and error things. So when you're out there, think about, what you've tried, what you've thought about, what you've analyzed, what you recall happening in other points or parts of your life that may relate back to that. All those things are critical. And you want to be sure you share that information, have it prepared and ready to share that information with your golf professional. Okay. Now, if at all possible, you want to bring your clubs or the actual equipment that you use because all equipment aren't created equally. So being able to utilize the actual clubs that you're seeing the issue with and that you're giving them information from helps tremendously. So you want to make sure that you gather that information, understanding the patterns and things that you're seeing so that you can share that with your golf professional when you get there as well. Okay? When we think about this from a leadership perspective, it's the same thing, right? Imagine walking into a meeting with an executive team and they're saying, "We have a problem." And then someone asks, "Oh, well, what's the problem?" And then someone says, "Oh, I don't know. We just have a problem." Well, that's not preparation. That's just saying that there's a problem. And from a leadership perspective, you don't have to have all the answers, But you want to understand why you say that it's a problem. Do you have data? Do you have information? Do you have reports? Do you have incident tickets? Do you have uh, any type of other pieces of information that leads to the fact that you have identified a pattern or a problem? And that way you and your team can sit down and say, okay, here's what we're seeing. So this is what we need to fix. That's how it works. Same thing goes for with a golf swing and your golf instructor. Here's the patterns, the data, the information of what we're seeing. Here's what we have to fix. And here's what we're putting our heads together to resolve. Okay. As a golf professional and from a golf, shall I say, a business professional, and from a golf lesson in leadership, just note that you don't just bring a problem to the table, right? You want to bring the observations, the informations, the questions that you help, or the questions that will help you kind of really solve the problem. Those are the things that you want to bring to the table. So, not just saying, hey, it's a broad type of issue, but really observing and seeing what's happening. And that is why practice becomes critical because you want to ensure that you're observing the things that you're doing and then creating repetition as well so that you get better at what you're doing. All right, the fourth thing, come ready to learn, not to be perfect. Could seem very familiar with that vulnerability in the last one, but with this one, listen, one of the biggest mistakes the golfers make is not coming ready to learn, but you're trying to be perfect, saying what you've already done, not just information wise, but saying that you have the answers. Listen, you hit one bad shot during the lesson and then you immediately say, I can't do this. But that doesn't put you in a mode to learn. You're coming to a conclusion before you before the session is done. No, you want to be open to hearing, receiving the feedback, and doing the execution. So, your lesson, because you're there to learn, you don't have to know everything yet. You don't have to hit every shot perfectly, but give yourself the opportunity to learn. Give yourself permission to be uncomfortable. You may change your grip, your posture, your takeaway, and it may even feel strange, but that's okay because you're giving yourself an option to learn. So you want to give yourself that option to learn, understanding that you're coming into this lesson to get new information, possibly information you've never heard, possibly getting some instructions or directions of things to do that you've never done before and they feel awkward, but being okay with saying, I'm going to try it, I'm going to give it a shot wholeheartedly and realistically. Okay? Because listen, new doesn't always feel right or natural, but that doesn't make it wrong. So you have to give it an opportunity. The golf swing it could be a little weird because you're swinging instead of hitting, which most people are used to doing. But again, coming into that session, being open to learn, you give it a chance. Okay? The one thing that is critically important in this realm while you're trying new things and you're being open to learn, you want to make sure that you share with your golf professional if you are severely uncomfortable, if you're feeling any type of pain, or anything of that sort, because there are adjustments that can be made for to accommodate certain things. But again, the new swing feeling quirky is one thing, feeling pain is another thing. So the feeling quirky part, give yourself a shot. But feeling pain, you want to make sure that you let your golf professional know about that. All right. Now, when we think about this from a leadership perspective, think about leadership development. When you take on a new responsibility, you aren't going to be perfect the first day, right? You're going to learn whether it's new technology, new communication skills if you're dealing with new employees, understanding how to communicate with them, um, learning to delegate from new leaders' perspective, public speaking, conflict resolution, financial management, strategic thinking. That is something that you're going to develop over time, and you give yourself an opportunity to develop. So there may be a little discomfort, but that's okay because growth requires discomfort. That's how you know you're growing, and that's okay. So leaving yourself available for those things, staying open to learning, that is 100% critical. Okay. Now, don't confuse unfamiliar with wrong. Sometimes growth feels uncomfortable because you're doing something differently, and that's okay. So, again, remember, growth is going to feel a little uncomfortable. Follow it through, see it through, look to learn the lessons, and move on to the next step. All right, the fifth thing is come with questions and a plan for practice. Come prepared with questions. Hey, why am I doing this? Why should I feel this? Why am I feeling this? What should I practice? How often should I practice? How do I know I'm improving? Ask all of those questions. Those are questions that your golf instructor should expect you to ask. So you're not making them uncomfortable and you're getting the information that you need. All right. The probably the most important question is going to be what should I work on before my next lesson? And when you're building on something, you want to get the building blocks taken care of before the next one. So if you have another session coming up or you have a series of sessions, make sure you understand where the sessions are going and you're not just walking into the lesson every day just hitting balls, but that you're growing from one level or one area in your golf game to another. You may be moving from putting to chipping, so you may be working on ball contact. You may move from chipping to pitching, from pitching to half full swings. But understanding where that lesson progression is going, that is very critical in the process, and it's critical in your confidence, or building confidence for you with your golf instructor. Because if you feel like, well, I just show up, I don't know what we doing, that's not good. And that again becomes a waste of time. Okay. And you have to be clear that the lesson is not the finish line. So your golf lesson is not the finish line, it's actually the beginning of the work. So that last part, what I say about coming with a practice plan, understanding that after you leave the golf instructor, there's additional work to be done. So you have to practice. You have to put those things into action to which you've learned. Okay. Now, same things works from a leadership perspective. When you look at it, leadership conversation, it doesn't create change by itself. No, execution creates change. Great leaders, they don't just have meetings, they establish action items, accountability, deadlines, follow up actions, measurements, key performance indicators, critical success factors, all of that good stuff. You need a plan after that meeting to understand where you're going next. Same thing goes for a golf lesson. You need a plan for what's next after that particular lesson. Sounds good? Nice. Awesome. So now let's just roll back real quick. When we look at this from a holistic standpoint and we think about a 5-step pre-lesson checklist, it is one, you want to define what you want to accomplish. 2, be honest with your golf professional with what you're struggling with. 3, prepare for that golf lesson. Bring information about, the direction your ball is going, what you're typically seeing, if it's coming up short, it's going too far, things aren't rolling out, they're checking up, all that good stuff. Prepare to share that information. 4, come prepared to learn. Embrace the new concept that your golf professional is going to give to you. And then 5, execute, meaning what are you going to do after the lesson? After you've practiced it or you've gone through it a couple of times in the lesson, then what are you going to do on your own as a part of your practice plan? So when we put them all together, define, communicate, prepare, learn, and execute. And that's not just a golf strategy, that is an actual leadership framework. So here is my challenge to you. This week, before your next golf lesson, so whether it's this week or whenever that is, or even before your next business meeting, because they're one and the same, right? Ask yourself these 5 questions and write it down. What is my objective? 2, what problem am I trying to solve? What information do I need? What am I willing to learn or change? And the fifth thing is, what action will I take afterwards? And then compare your results. You may discover that the way you prepare for golf is pretty revealing about how you prepare for leadership. If you're not documentative or really fully analyzing one, you're probably not fully analyzing the other. And that is another thing that you, from a golf perspective of, hey, the many lessons and the many things that the game of golf can teach us, that's actually one of them. All right. Now, that brings us to the end of another episode of the A Perfect Swing podcast. It has been a pleasure. I am looking forward to hearing about your sessions with your golf professionals. Remember, golf isn't about a perfect swing, it's about having a repeatable process. And leadership is the exact same way. You prepare, you execute, you evaluate, you adjust, and then you do it all over again. So before your next golf lesson, don't just show up with your golf clubs. Show up with a purpose. And before your next leadership opportunity, don't just show up with a title. Show up prepared to lead. I'm Ashante Epps. Thank you again for listening to the A Perfect Swing podcast, where we're learning that the lessons we learn on the golf course can help us become better professionals, better leaders, and better versions of ourselves. If anything in this podcast resonates with you or you know it will resonate with someone else, I ask that you share it with them, like, subscribe. I appreciate the support. And until next time, keep swinging with purpose.